Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. What's going on, everybody? Whoops, hold on. Let me just make sure that we're not live here. Let me just do that real quick. Okay. All right. Welcome to anybody who's joining in. I think in the last live stream, I had like to throw a box around the camera angle. I don't know why, but I think I was able to fix that. So hopefully this should be better. Assalamu alaikum, Maliki Clip. Good to see you. What's going on? I'm outside. I think it's about to rain, but you know me, I take a risk and who cares, right? If it rains, it rains. But anyways, so what did I make? What's the title about in this video? By the way, welcome everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Um, you know, make sure you tweet it out or get stuff out there so that we can get some more people involved. I put it on Twitter, but I'm not sure how many people. Actually, let me put this on my Twitter right now, so that way I can get everybody involved. Let me do this real quick. How do I forget how to do this stuff every once in a while when I don't go live very often. I forget how to do everything. And so let me just get everything going here. Okay. All right. Okay. So let me just mute this, and then how do I do this? Share. Okay, there we go. Twitter. All right, I am live. All righty, good. Very good. Good deal. All right. So, based on the title of the video, it's pretty much, Muslim social media and the drama and beef. And what is going on with that? Well, in all honesty, I'm making this video because, in light of a lot of these recent things that are happening, people are making videos towards other people and like they're refuting people. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, Amir. Welcome to the chat. Yeah. So I'm making this video because, there's a lot of beef going on Twitter and different social media avenues or platforms. And I think that, honestly, alaikum assalam, Yusuf Sayyid, welcome to the chat, welcome to the live session. Thank you for joining in. So I feel like right now, I don't know how you guys feel, but there's a lot of people that are too invested in what other people are saying, right? Like they're following the tweets and they're, writing everything down and then creating reputations. And I feel like rather than attacking an individual, right, why don't you just go after the content, right? Go after the actual thought, right? Because, I mean, I get the idea of jarah wa ta'dil and making a reputation, about an idea or even a particular scholar attacking another scholar. Well, to be honest, Yusuf, I don't want to mention names, but I don't think it's just him. I think there's this culture going on right now on Muslim YouTube and Muslim Twitter and blah, 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 right? The whole Muslim internet. And I feel like, I don't mind the banter. I really don't. I enjoy it. I mean, if someone wants to critique anything that I'm saying, I enjoy it. I welcome it. I actually want to invite people onto the show and say, hey, come on and give me your arguments and let's talk about it, right? But when you get to a point where like you're just spitting like venom, right, where it just becomes animosity, what are you achieving, right? You're kind of like splitting, and I'm not blaming any one side for this. I mean, both parties can be responsible no matter who's there. But I feel like, aren't we supposed to be having a conversation? I mean, let's say you think the other side is irrational. Okay, maybe there's some things they're reading that you're not aware of. Maybe there's some things that are going on in the world around them, and they're seeing it happen, and they're sounding the alarm, and they're just extremely upset. right? And this can work for both sides. But I just think that going after the individual as a person, like whether on either side, is just not a good thing to do, right? I mean, you don't want to spend time um, getting involved in ad hominems, right? Because that it becomes a war of insult rather than content. And the whole point of making videos and putting out tweets is to put out content that people are going to relate to, right? If they're not going to relate to that, then all you're doing is creating entertainment, right? People like drama, right? If I say, oh, you know what, if I put a title on my show and said, you know what, I hate the Mad Mamluks and blah blah blah, and I start ripping down everybody else one by one on the show and saying everything about them, right? Um, it would be, it would. What would I achieve by doing that? Nothing, right? Now I don't mind critiquing arguments, right? And that's gonna lead me to my next thing I want to talk about. I think Muslims have fallen into this trap of being right or left. And I don't think we need to be on the right or left. We don't need to be on any side. We just need to be in the middle, as the Quran tells us to be in the middle, right? There are certain things from the conservative or right side of politics, whether you're in America or the UK or anywhere in the world, and certain things on the left that you can take, right? The left and the liberal, alaikum salam, jib jib. And that you can take and you can implement that and benefit. And there are some benefits to them that we can apply to ourselves as an ummah and even align with that, right? And I think Muslims should be focused on what's important to us. Not so much is all of the left good for us or is all of the right good for us. No, it should be about what from these areas can we align or build an alliance with. And based on that, but it should be rooted in the Quran and Sunnah. It should be rooted in what's important to us, right? Not what's important to them or not what's appealing to them, right? Because let's be honest for a moment, they're never going to be happy with our decision, right? They're always going to be, oh, you should have done this, or you should side with this, or you should side with that, right? But they're never going to see it from the perspective of a Muslim. Our lens that we wear as Muslims is completely different because our lens is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is our aqidah, right? I mean, our aqidah shapes our total outlook on our life, like everything that we do, our actions, right? It goes back to that fundamental thing about our aqidah. Without that, we don't have a base. But right now, I feel like we're chasing somebody else's base, right? Like, is the left going to be happy? Is the right going to be happy? Are they going to be upset? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And it's not really a good way to be, right? Yusuf says, Twitter has caused so much fitna. Well, I mean, yes, Twitter can cause fitna, but I think part of the problem is that when you are limited to 240 characters and you're trying to create not only a message, but you're also trying to create a buzz so that people, like basically advertising, you're going to say stuff that will come off like, oh my God, what is that, right? I think people should be smart enough not to fall for that banter, right? Until you've talked to somebody. I think Maheen mentioned this on a show that we just did recently that, he tries to reserve judgment until we actually meet somebody. And I think that's very, very important because, in the age of social media and and all these things, like this way that we connect without having an interaction as a human being, the human aspect gets lost in that, right? Like the communication, the nonverbal communication gets lost, right? And I think that that's very important, right? There should be a some kind of communication that's there that is of how do I put it, that you can pick up on, like like the nonverbals. And if you don't have that, it becomes even that much more difficult. So, for instance, if I put a tweet for 240 characters and say, you know what, um, you know. Muslims are crap because these leftists are taking over everything, right? Now, someone could take it and go, oh my God, this guy hates Muslims. He thinks the Muslims are on the left. But that may not be what I'm saying. I may be saying, you know what, the left is poisoning Muslims or whatever it may be, right? I mean, but you would never know that unless you're coming to talk to me, right? Let me see. Amir says, it seems like it's so hard to find people who just want to be sincere and work collectively for what the Prophet ﷺ uh, came with, it's frustrating when you can see non-Islamic ideology in Muslim comments. Yes, exactly. Yes. Um, that's the reality. That Muslim comments on social media tend to reflect the postmodern philosophical ideas that they're learning in colleges, right? And this is a problem that we have with a lot of with being educated in the West, where and not being put in the same focus into our religious studies, right? You have a mixing and a blending of ideas that now becomes Islam. And what I find very funny is that what I find very funny is that sorry, the kids are yelling at the thing. But anyway, what I find very funny is that this is exactly what Ibn Taymiyyah was confronted with, right? When the Tartars, not on the same level, but when the Mongols were trying to introduce ideas within Islam that were partly from the Mongols and then mixed with the Sharia, and Ibn Taymiyyah was like, no, we can't accept it because this is going to taint what we have. And likewise, I feel like today these different philosophical ideas, the ideas of kalam and how they affect us are going to they're going to affect our position as Muslims. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakallah. Welcome to the room. Yeah, welcome to the live show. Maliki Click. Welcome, welcome. Many would argue that classical scholars still critique or even did takfir in some cases, even if they were never meant the individual. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't mind that, Yusuf Sayyid, right? As long as, I mean, look, if it's in a book form, keep in mind here, Yusuf, as well too, that classical times were a little bit different in the sense that the common layman didn't read the books of reputations. You would agree with that, right, Yusuf? It wasn't like the common man picked up a book like Aqidat al-Tahawiyya, right, or Aqidat al-Wasitiyya, right? They didn't pick these books up. They didn't kashaf, they didn't pick up these books by, or different scholars, or even the books by, Ghazali or Ibn Khaldun. They didn't pick these books up and read them. It wasn't like something that was normal for them, right? Most people didn't have a copy of Sahih al-Bukhari or Muslim or any of these books or tafsir or anything like that, right? They didn't have these things, right? This is a modern thing where now with the click of a button, we're able to click all this material and and have access to it. And now that somehow inflates our ego to think, well, I can write anything I want to now. Oh, this scholar said this, and I can write a reputation based on this. But I don't think it's that simple. There's a lot of nuances, right? Scholars understood, the time and place and what they would say is ilm al-waqi'ah, like the reality of a situation, what was going on, what the people were faced with, what those ideas of those individuals were, or at least his group was, and that way they're able to formulate a response. But right now, everybody is reading your response. Even the common layman who doesn't even pray 5 times a day is reading what you're reading, or what you're writing about some deep, complex topic. And now this common layman, because he may like a certain camp or has some kind of affiliation with it, is now going to be defending and arguing about something they don't even really know. They don't even really. I mean, they're not even on the basics yet, right? They don't even have the proper tarbiyah, and yet they're worrying about the left and the right, and they're worried about aqidah, they're worried about the fiqh of certain things and this stuff and that stuff, right? It's just not practical to me, right? One of the things as Muslims is that we have to have practical implementation of Islam in our lives. Otherwise, it simply becomes something academic. Islam shouldn't be something that you study for as a hobby just to refute somebody on the internet, right, and write a reputation on. And unfortunately, a lot of us fall in that category, right? We'll study and read and take notes and explore different fatwa about a certain topic just because we want to, refute somebody on the internet. And is that really healthy? I don't think so. I think Islam is being reduced to a bunch of opinions and debates, and it's lost. We've lost our connection, our spirituality behind it. Leave that to qualified scholars. Why is some IT guy with a hard with no qualifications in Islam, or even not even researching it full time as a profession, why is he so involved with this? Is he that much involved with his own or his or her own I guess religiosity? Are they making the same effort? I'm not saying that one cannot connect or correct a Muslim brother or whatever it may be. I'm saying that sometimes we're delving into certain areas that we don't have business going into. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense to you guys, but that's how I feel about it. I feel like we're wasting a lot of valuable, precious time. You know, like there are things that we could be doing in our community that would be so much more beneficial. Like, how do we raise the educational level among Muslims? How do we keep marriages from breaking up in Muslim households? How do we protect our kids from being persuaded by the liberal ideologies of, like, transgenderism and homosexuality, right? How do we do that, right? Rather than spending time arguing and laymen's arguing about what scholars are doing. Alaikum salam, welcome Mahin, my brother from another mother. Mahin, the podcaster, is on in the live chat, man. I'm blessed. I'm truly blessed. My brother's checking me out. So I feel like, why are we why is Muslim social media so plagued with all of this bickering? I'll be honest with you. Well, that's another problem too. We just had these are different social issues among many Maliki cliques, but we just had a brother Robert Darfour from Islam in Europe, Islam for Europe, whatever, in on a show, and we were talking about this too. Like, there's a stigma, there's a unique struggle that white converts or European converts have, or American converts have in Islam. It's very different than the African American revert, very different than the Hispanic American revert, very different than anybody else, right? And that is unique to them. But instead of focusing on these practical issues that we're worried about what so and so is saying on Twitter about some figure that I like. Is that going to benefit you, dude? And on top of all of that, they're tagging people, other people. Like, honestly, I don't know about Mahin, but I can tell you a lot about, how I feel about this. When someone tags me on Twitter and says, "What do you think about this?" or "Your boy that," right? I'm thinking, like, dude, I don't even know what's happening. I don't follow this stuff that religiously. Like, honestly, I'm gonna use Daniel as an example. I don't follow everything that he does. I respect him. I think he's cool. Me and him have a great relationship. I text him every now and then. We get along. Hopefully, we'll meet soon. I have no animosity towards the brother, right? Do I agree with everything he says? No. But do I follow everything that he does? I don't have that time. I don't know about Mahin, but really, most of the times we learn about this drama because of Twitter, right? Because of Twitter is how we learn about it. Someone will tag us. Someone will say this, and this is going back to the point I made yesterday about don't give negativity attention. Why do you give negativity attention? It's going to only breed more negativity, my man. It's not going to help you. You're going to drag other brothers involved who are not involved with something, and it's going to cause fitna, and fitna is worse than anything, right? Yeah, and I think, to be honest, even you, Mahin, like, when Daniel was there, to be honest, it's just like, don't tag people who are not involved with it. I'm not accountable for Daniel. Mahin's not accountable for Daniel. Sim is not accountable. Everyone is accountable for themselves, right? I don't have to justify anything that and what that mentality is horrible. And this is what I was talking about, was like the how do I put it, was like the cancel culture and the guilt by association. And the problem is this happens, like, with Muslims in general. Like, for example, with 9/11, some people will expect every single Muslim to apologize for every single action that happens, that Muslims do, any Muslim does. Now, when that happens to us, we feel like, oh my God, why are we doing that? Like, why would I apologize for some goofball that I don't even know? Like, I have nothing to do with that guy. Like, let's say the Orlando Post shooting. How do I know about that whack job? I know nothing about that guy. Why would I apologize for him or answer for him? Likewise, why would I apologize for Daniel or anybody else, or for what Mahin says, or for what Sim says, or for what any of you say in the room, right? Let me just read the comments here. Problem is, when you see people unjustly attacking someone, there isn't an. Of course, I understand that. I understand that. You're right. It's the human nature. But what I'm saying is, let me ask you something. And by the way, I'm not using an analogy to call anybody crazy, but let's say you are walking in the street and you see a crazy guy yelling at you. Are you gonna, let's say you see a crazy guy just saying, "You know what? Mort from TMM is a bastard. I hate him. He's stupid. He's a terrorist, blah, blah, blah." And he's crazy. He just keeps yelling every day, every now. Are you gonna go and argue with the guy? You probably won't, right? You're gonna walk past them. If he does it daily, you're gonna walk past them and say, "Look, man, I'm just gonna ignore it because it's not. You're not gonna convince the guy, right?" Likewise, I'm saying if you see something where someone's behavior is constant and consistent and you don't like it, ignore the content. The more attention you give it, this is the beauty of social media, right? You can create even negative attention that benefits a person, right? And I mentioned that yesterday about Charlie Hebdo, about the Quran burning, about the innocence of Muslims, all that stuff, right? We talked about that. And it's something that you have to show restraint in, right? You know, it's just that I think that if you really want to counter something, you just kind of gotta. Sometimes it's better to ignore and let people who are in charge and people who are on a scholarly level deal with them, right? Because now you know what I mean. It seems like what's going on here is it seems like some guy who or, a scholar or no scholar, whatever you may be, or he's claiming to be, or the other person is, they have some type of debate going on or disagreement. It's for them to work out. Because now, if I get it, like we don't know the nuances, we don't know even the backdrop behind everything, right? At some point, they may have worked together, they may have crossed paths together, they may have, there may be something else going on, right? And I'm just saying, on social media, you can't get all of that, right? I guess that's where I'm coming from. We need each other. Amr says, we need each other and we have to build each other. It's not about to fix itself. The future needs to be guided better than we have been guided. They need to be all equipped to carry it. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, Walaikum Salam and the Lucian Project, welcome. And I feel like, you know what? Like there's so much more work that we have to do, man. I mean, honestly, there's so much work. Like I look at Muslim media and Muslim podcasting and Muslim blogospheres and look at like look at the Muslims that are not talking about Islam and just as like lifestyle blogging, whatever. Look at the numbers of followers they have, the amount of money and Patreon they generate. Why can't we do something? Why are we spending time on stuff that's going to take us away from that? A lot of times people run away from Islam because they're tired of like this religious bickering and fighting. They want practical solutions, right? Do you know how many times I've seen with like people say, you know what? Every time I go into religion, I'm confused. Like, do I follow this side? Do I follow that side? They're always fighting. The deeper I go, I mean, how many people who have reverted to Islam have told me later on that at some point they were so confused when they entered Islam. Do I become Salafi? Do I become Ash'ari? Do I become Sufi? Do I become this? Do I become that? You know what I mean? And I feel like this adds on another layer of complexity that makes them like, oh my God, you have to be with this camp or that camp. And if you're not, you can't talk to them because they're not with this camp, right? How is that benefiting any of us? Dude, all of us are going to we have families, we're going to have kids that have to grow up in a world after us. Is any of this content right now that is, the bickering that we do online, is that going to be a benefit to them when we leave this earth, like 30, 40, 50 years, when we look back? Are we going to look back and be like, hey, that was beneficial for the kid that's coming after us? We grew up, I mean, all of us here pretty much are probably my age, a little bit younger, but we grew up in an America where we didn't have role models. I mean, I think Hamza Yusuf was the first one that came out and really spoke a language that we understood, right? Even though people may agree or disagree, but he spoke English, he was relatable, he understood, but that was it. Beyond that, there was some uncle or some ammu with an accent and some, and it was it. Like we couldn't relate. We had Sunday school where there was like backward, like we just, I mean, we didn't have content to relate to, right? And I think that's what I'm trying to see the bigger picture here. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be reputations and arguments done. I believe it should. There are people that are qualified and who it applies to, and they can get into that. But I advise the regular people to stay out of it, right? Like don't involve yourself in this. You're not researchers. You're not. I mean, me involved too. That's why I tend to stay. I'm not an academic. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the knowledge of it. And I tend not to get involved with that stuff. I just tend not to really. If I can see good from whether it be, I'm just using Dan as an example, Daniel. If I see good from, Jonathan Brown, if I see good from Joe Bradford, if I see good from Asada Andalusi, if I see good from Brother Shadid, if I see good from Dawa Man, I'm going to tweet it. I'm going to put it out. Mufti Menk, I'm going to retweet that, man, because that's a gem, right? Like that, you take the good and leave the bad. Right now, we need all the good that we can get. is what I'm trying to say. We're trying to get somewhere. We got a goal. You know, every time, I mean, I remember when we first started the Mad Mamluks, me and Mahin had a conversation or I mean, Sim and Amir, like, what's our end goal? And at the end of the day, I think we wanted like a Muslim media house where, like, why is it, you know, where every time there's something going on in the world, they got some Joe Schmo Muslim that nobody knows about, like from Arkansas or somewhere, that nobody knows about, and he gives an opinion on CNN. Like, why is that? Like, why don't we have a main body, like a publishing house or a clearinghouse where, like, hey, this is what we agree on. This is, and it's like an accurate cross section of Muslims. Let me give you an example. I know this is kind of funny, but you know, in America, they had like, I mean, they had a show on a reality TV show about, like, you know, something about Muslims in America, and they picked the most liberal Shiite family in Dearborn, Michigan, that even Shiites were like, oh my God, like, what? This is so embarrassing. Like, why are they representing Muslims in America? But that's the kind of stuff that we have to deal with, you know, in the background. And I know it seems like a nuanced thing. It is, but it's part of the bigger problem, right? And I feel like that we got to be leaving stuff that's more meaningful, that's beneficial, right? They got, I mean, if they're getting more life lessons from watching a show called Rami over, you know, listening to a show about Islam, there's a problem. Don't you agree? There's a problem, right? I mean, there's a problem. Okay. The problem with Daniel is that he's the instigator. If you go back and look at where stuff happened, oh, that may be true. I mean, I don't know the whole detail of that, and that may be true. And if that's the case, what I'm saying is ignore the content, because is refuting him, is that going to end the fire? People are loyal to his camp, right? And if they're loyal, it's only going to anger them, and it's only going to make him promote a response in order to generate more um, followers or say faith, or in any case, and I'm not picking on Daniel. I'm just only using it here because you're bringing it up. But I don't think it's going to be healthy, right? I mean, I get why, you know, certain people have to respond. Like, you know, if you know, if he mentions people like Dr. Brown and Sheikh Omar Suleiman and Sheikh Yasha Qadi or anybody else, of course they feel they're obliged to respond because they're mentioning them, right? They are calling them out, right? And they have every right to respond to that. I would do, if someone called me out, I would respond to it as well too. That's their haqq, right? But what I'm saying is there are many other people who are tagging other people. Hey, did you see what he wrote? Did you see that? Check this out. What's up with your boy, right? And that kind of stuff is not good. Like, what am I gonna do about that? Like, you know, what are you gonna do about that? We can't, right? Ignoring. Well, I mean, so what do you think is gonna happen, Mahin? Like, do you think that he's gonna stop if or anyone like him would stop if you if you hold on, if you allow him? Yeah, okay. So let's say TMM. Let's say we host him and give him a platform, right? Do you think that because he was on TMM, if we didn't allow him on TMM, that he would be quiet, that he would not say anything? I don't know that. I don't think it's. I don't. I mean, he has his own platform where he had probably more followers on a live session than we do. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I just don't see how that's gonna giving him education. Well, I mean, people are on the fence, but at the end of the day, they can also hear the content that Joe Bradford's putting out, or that Jonathan Brown's putting out, or that, you know, the other people are putting out, right? They can hear that, make their mind up. Exactly. Loyal followers will not budge for any side, right? So that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, I'm just trying to feel like, I'm not saying that refutation of his content is not needed. You can make that, right? I mean, I think people who are in that field can make that discussion, right? Okay, let me read the comment. But it's also creating more fitna than that. I've been called. Yes, yes, I understand, for speaking up against deviance and yaqeen. I agree. And Asadullah, if you've been called out specifically, I feel you are obliged and that you have the right to respond to that. But what I'm against is, let's say, me coming out and be like, yeah, Asadullah, I'm following to Joe. Let me tag him. And let's say I'm following something else that Daniel's talking about, not even related to you. And I'm like, hey, Asadullah, what do you think about this? You know, what do you think about this? Right? And I tag you with that, right? And try to bring you in. Is that healthy? I don't think that's healthy, right? If it's not related to you, right, then why would I encourage you to be involved in that drama? That's my problem. Not that you can't respond and defend yourself or clear up misconceptions. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's my point, brother. That's my point. Like, you know, and that's all I'm talking about. I'm not saying that brothers who have been attacked don't have the rights. You know what I mean? To respond and to clarify doubts and to clarify their positions Absolutely. I think it's actually mandatory. It's compulsory on you to do that. If someone's calling you out and they're threatening you and saying that you are a deviant or ahl al-bid'ah or whatever, a mubtadi or whatever it may be, right? Sure, you are obliged to respond and clarify those doubts. No doubt. I don't deny that at all. I'm just, my advice is to the common Muslim, Twitter user that is out there just retweeting stuff for clout and drama. Like, there are people, you guys would agree, right? There are people who genuinely enjoy the fight, right? They like to see drama. They get on at night like, oh my God, let me see what's going on Muslim Twitter right now. Did you see that hijabi? Did you see, oh my God, they put the LGBTQ flag up. Oh my God, look, he's pro BLM. Oh my God. Like, I mean, it's like nonsense. It's complete nonstop. If it's not this, it'll be something else they'll tag you in. Like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Right? And a lot of times we get that, Asadullah, you're a content creator, Mahin, you're a content creator, other people on here, Malikly Click. I'm sure people tag you and DM you with, hey, can you create a video to refute this? Can you do that? And a lot of times I tend not to. Calling other brothers the youth, and yeah, of course. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I'm not even gonna get in that, dude. I think if someone called me a youth, or someone called me, or like, look, do I agree with women being put up front? In my honest opinion is that I wouldn't want anyone in my family to do that. But is it haram? Is it and is that the issue that you gotta focus on? Is that really the problem in 2020? I mean, now one could make an argument that, you know what, it's part of a bigger issue that's there, and fine, I can see that. But to go all out and spend all your time making a video about that, I personally wouldn't. I think that's a waste of time for me. I think that's a waste of time. And I think, like I said, put out content that's, if you want to attack, like, let's say, if he wants to make the argument that being that putting that out, that content out, is a indication of how we've progressed more left as an ummah, fine, say that, like, attack the argument of the left, right? And say, this is why I think this is one of the effects of that. But you don't have to spend time to, using that language like, oh, they're glamour shots, and they're men have no spine, and they're cucks, and that kind of stuff is not, for me, it's not productive. If you want a conversation, if you want to penetrate the hearts and minds, if you want to create that dialogue with your brother, don't insult him. Right? Like, if I wanted to come and be like, hey, you know what? I like your podcast, but if I were like, you know what? Your beard is crap, but I like your why would you say that to me? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be open to your reception, right? I'm not going to be open. Yeah, of course. The youth is one who, I mean, of course, shameful for you that don't know it. The youth is one who has no shame over his family or his women. He has no problem with men looking at his women, and he will enter the hellfire. He'll be among people. The Prophet despises these people, right? Because they don't fulfill their obligations as men to their families and to the women that they are in charge of. Of course, we know it's almost like calling somebody a khawarij. It's pretty much, I mean, like, it's as insulting if someone was to call me a khariji and to call me a dayuth. Like, I would be equally offended if someone were to do that. It means like, I'm gonna be like, away from the millah. Like, I have no idea what Islamic morals are, But again, I'm gonna say, and I think this is not geared towards Muslim content creators, because unfortunately they're in a unique position because of the fact that they have to respond to allegations sometimes against them. This is more of a message to people that are trying to involve content creators in drama that's not necessarily around them, in order to create this gang mentality, right? This is my gang. This is your gang. Now we can go at it. Wait till my, and you know what? I've seen this before too, by the way. I've seen this among the Aqidah debates in the UK. Does that sound familiar? Like, where they have the Ash'ari camp coming and the Maturidi camp coming, and they have the Athari camp coming, and then, like, they're just gonna be, the followers get rowdy, and like, they're calling each other out on Twitter and YouTube, and like, yeah, your boy's a coward and blah blah blah. Right? It's gotten to that point. I feel like we're getting to that point now where it's becoming a fan club and the fans are fighting each other. It's no longer even about content that's actually a meaningful refutation anymore. It's more about, this is my guy, I'm on his camp, I'm going to defend him no matter what, till the end of the road. Right? And that kind of mentality is wrong. Our allegiance should be only to the Quran and Islam and our Aqidah. That's it. I mean, beyond that, we don't have allegiance to anything else besides that. I mean, in terms of value, the core, and our philosophy, right? And that's what I feel about that. I mean, I just feel like that right now it's become very toxic, and I hate to use this word toxic, but right now it's been, and I don't blame brothers for taking a break from Twitter. I know some brothers on here have taken a break from Twitter and from from YouTube and whatever it may be. I do, Zaid Ashraf. I do engage. What are you talking about? Hey, what's going on? Salam alaikum. Wait, let me see the Majid Nawaz. Well, I mean, Majid Nawaz is a separate issue. I don't think. I mean, is he really relevant? I mean, this is another example. Like, I mean, I don't even remember Majid Nawaz until somebody brings him up, right? I mean, I don't remember him. Amina will do people like this. I mean, you don't really remember them until people bring them up. And I'm sure he has a lot of stuff to say about Muslims in the UK, and probably even attacking other da'is in the UK, right? But nobody gives him attention, right? And that much attention. He only gets attention from people like Tommy Robinson, right? Where they put him on his platform, right? But he won't come on a Muslim platform, right? He won't be invited. So in that way, I get it, right? But I don't know how you guys feel, but I guess I'm trying to find a way because I know that I know in the hearts of people like John Brown and I mean I'm John Brown, Jonathan Brown, and Asadullah, right? I know I've talked to you, some of you guys on the side. I've talked to you, Asadullah, like on even like on Twitter or sometimes even on a Discord group, and like the objective, the big picture is beyond this. This is like a roadblock in your dream, like in the objective, like in what we're trying to do. We're trying to create like this Renaissance period of Muslim intellectuals and critical thinkers and people that are prepared and equipped to deal with legitimate trials and tribulations that are going to come up to them, right? And I feel like doing this is unfortunately going to pull away from that, right? And I feel like honestly, some of this behavior that we're seeing today is a result of some of the ideology we've learned from the West. Even in some ways, the way Daniel's responding, right? I feel like that mannerism, that critique mannerism is something we've learned from the West. Is just speak your mind, don't hold back, be unfiltered, right? These kinds of things are something that was not is unique. It's not. I mean, it's not. It's not. It's very unique to this society, right? If you look at the relationship between people of knowledge and people that didn't have knowledge, and the relationship they had in the past, right? They were very they were respected knowledge. I'm not saying you have to agree with everything, but you respect people that dedicated their lives to studying and trying to present arguments and cases, right? Because you respect that scholarship. Right now, I feel like any kid that reads a book about Ilm al-Rijal is now an expert on a hadith, and now he's telling people, "Oh, you can't tell me the hadith. That scholar is bogus because he quotes weak hadith." Like, come on, bro. Like, I mean, is that real? Is that what we're gonna do now? Right? We're just reduced to a bunch of people that are like, that ignore nuances and just, like I don't feel like we're going in the right direction with that. Let me see the comment. There is so many issues on Twitter, so many opinions that stick to my lane and have focus, and I can't enter into. Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think some of that has to do with the fact that maybe age is a factor, right? Some of us are a little bit older, have families and jobs, and so we can't be kind of as connected, um, to social media. And there are younger kids that have more time and they're more involved with it. Let me see, more great point, because I don't know if this is the new time in the Ummah where lay people. This is what I'm saying. Like, I've never heard of it before. I mean, I'm sure there are some better researchers in the live chat here, but I've never seen a time where laymen would just walk up to a sheikh and be like, or write a book about a sheikh and be like, oh, this guy's wrong. And I mean, I never heard about that in my life. And if one did, they were probably discredited, right? They were probably like just thrown away and be like, hey, it's a nobody, right? Like, he doesn't have anything going on, right? So I think in that way we're in a unique time, and I think that, and I'm sure there were people that were distractors in that time period. By the way, Mahin, I'm sure there were people that made comments and tried to invite people to other things, but they didn't get the attention and traction because they didn't have the internet at that time. And the problem with the internet, though, is that every one of these people can get attention. And that's why I'm trying to say common lay people shouldn't be giving them attention. Absolutely, Andalusian Project. Absolutely. I mean, how can you not respect somebody that, even if you disagree with them, how can you not respect somebody that has dedicated their life to pursuing knowledge? I mean, I've traveled in my limited travels to go and to seek knowledge as much as I can, and I tell you that changed my life on everything. Like I felt like that I'm in no position to ever criticize anyone that has dedicated portions of their life. I mean, just the struggle to go and do that is for me enough to respect them. And I think that we need to bring that part of our culture back, right? That culture needs to be brought back. And the modern culture that we live in has influenced the way that we deal with scholars. And by the way, not to digress here, but this is also changing the way that we deal with each other. The respect that we give each other and the respect that we give our elders, our parents, our spouses, our children, these kinds of things are affecting that. And the way even our children respect us and grandparents and so forth and so on, right? All of that is being affected by the same disease. And I think we're just, we're seeing that now. Let me read some of the comments here. Maliki says, the good old days before Islam, we sat in the masjid and had a discussion face to face. Yes. Jib, yes, but other scholars were beaten with slippers in public deviance. Well, yeah, but Ahmad bin Hanbal was beaten, rahimahullah, by the decree of a government, not by some guy coming up making a reputation of him and then beating him, right? I mean, there's a very different story, right? It's not like some common layman came to him and wrote a newspaper and said, Ahmad bin Hanbal is a deviant. No, this is why. No, it came down from other Ash'ara, like, or governments that influenced scholars that influenced the government at that time. You see how that can be different? Yeah, of course, he knows philosophy, sure. I mean, and philosophy or physics, he can stick to that. And but I'm not saying that he's and by the way, I'm not saying Daniel himself is a complete layman. I'm talking about people who are hyping up. Like I'm a layman. If I were to go on Twitter and start retweeting everything like this all the time, I'm talking about myself, right? I mean, Daniel has his expertise in certain areas, and he can provide content that is good in certain areas, and like everybody else, he can have bad things, right? It's ironic because those claiming to be against American Islam are behaving like normal Americans, like a bunch of parents. Well, that's another thing. So I'm glad you brought that up. American Islam. What is American Islam? Is there like is there a Saudi Islam? Is there a Egyptian Islam? Is there a is there Indonesian Islam? I mean, how do we come up with that term? We are in America and we are Muslim. Simple. I mean, can we say that, look, if you pick out all the bad things that the American Muslim community is doing and then say that's American Islam, we can do that as well with any other country in the world. I could say, oh, you know what? The bad argument of the Shia in their religion in Iran is Iranian Islam. The crazy opinions of the Salafi Mashayikh in Saudi Arabia is Saudi Islam. The legalization of prostitution in Bangladesh or somewhere, that's Bengali Islam, right? I mean, you could say that all over again. I can go anywhere else and do that, right? But why don't I don't understand this idea, right? Yeah, and this is what I don't understand. I think, to be honest, in my humble opinion, I think what happens in America as Muslims, we influence the world in a lot of ways. I'm not saying that we are like the most scholarly, whatever, but what happens, a lot of people look to America to find out how the American Muslims handle things, right? Like because we're confronted with a lot, right? I mean, just look at the scholars, the organizations that come out of here. I think America and the UK, I think we can look at that, right? And say, there's a lot of work that comes out of these two places, more so than like Indonesia, Malaysia, Pakistan, Brunei or the UAE or other places like that, right? You would think that there's more of an impact that we have globally on Islam. Let me see. Okay, he's not a layman when it comes to philosophy. He has a master's in the field, which is why his fallacious arguments are inexcusable. Fair enough. Amir says, I think the content on the internet, especially in QA Masaila, sometimes becomes not very scholarly, even excused by saying kind of makes an certain respect diminish. It might not reflect true scholarship, but portrayed that way. Okay. Well, no one seems to care what's going on here either. They think Muslims are a monolith. Yeah, and that's another problem too. Great point. I mean, I think people who are not in America or outside viewers need to understand that just like they have this idea that every single Muslim is in America is some kind of liberal guy, that believes that LGBTQ rights are great, and that that gay marriage is good, and that women can pray next to men, and that and to be honest, it's so far from the truth. Like we have, I mean, like Darul Uloom, for those of you in the UK who are big on like the Hanafi and the Deoband, that Darul Uloom was established in Chicago before Darul Uloom in Britain, I believe. Okay, like I mean, they've been here for a long time. They have whole huge. I mean, so you can imagine that. I mean, I'm saying Islam in America has traditional, it has orthodox, it has radical, it has liberal, just like any other place in the world, right? It literally does. And I would say that mainstream Islam a majority of Muslims in America are more mainstream. They are traditional Sunni Orthodox Muslims who struggle like any other community would struggle in a non-Muslim country. If I can sum it up that way, I've been raised here my whole life. Only until modern times have I started hearing some crazy arguments, and that's happening all around the world. It's not unique to America, right? I'll just say that much. Let me see what Jib Jib said. He, DH, just like everyone else, should have given their ideas have their ideas listened to and critique. Blocking him is not correct, surely, especially when much of what he is saying is obviously not wrong. So I agree. I mean, I don't block anybody. I only block people that are pests. I mean, I have this Somali guy that's in Canada, and he's telling me that I don't know anything about Black Lives Matter and that I don't know anything about racism in America. And I feel like telling the kid, like, bro, you are a Somali guy that immigrated to Canada in the 90s, and I lived my whole life in America, like dealing with my own versions of racism, growing up in areas and being not fitting in with either crowd, blacks or whites or Hispanics or anybody. We have our own unique experience. And I feel like that, I didn't block him out though. I didn't block him. I said, you know what? Let me invite you to a show. Let's sit down and talk. I even follow right now on his Twitter feed. I actually put an alert for everything he tweets out, even though he tags me in ridiculous things, because I want to show this young gentleman that I want to be part of the conversation. I'm not going to block you. I'm not going to shun you away. I'm not going to turn you away, because at the end of the day, you're still my brother. Even if I hate what you're telling me, even if I think you're utterly wrong, right? I'm going to give you that respect. I'm going to give you that time of day. But now if he starts insulting me, of course, that's different. I'm going to obviously have to block the content off my feed, whatever. But if he's respectful, but leaving comments that I don't necessarily agree with, I'm not gonna block him. I agree with that, Jib Jib. Bro, this is the first time I started seeing all the LGBTQ stuff is when certain segment of our ummah pointed it out. Exactly. Andalusian, for the longest time, talking to the youth, I've seen more complaints about atheism, apostasy, LGBTQ. Very few bring it up. Absolutely. And I got some guy from Bangladesh and Pakistan telling me LGBT. No, I agree. Actually, I don't know if you guys, for some of the Canadian brothers, do you remember? I don't know how long you, I don't know when you come to Islam, Atadullah, but I remember back in the late 90s, there was the first time I heard about this Muslim thing was in Canada. There was like this group called Al-Fatiha, where it was like the first Muslim gay guy or whatever, and he'd like some Pakistani guy. And then there was Irshad Manji, and like they kind of like disappeared. That was the first time I heard about it. It was like maybe actually right around after 9/11, I think, around like 2000, something like that. It was around that time, whatever it may be. But Faisal Alam, yeah, remember that? Like he disappeared, like nobody even remembers him. And I think if he would have came out right now, Maheen, right, because of internet and Twitter, he would have been blown up. Like he would have blown up. You know what I mean? Like he would have blown up. And I think but since he didn't get no attention, he went away. You know what I mean? And for us, like people are like, oh my God, like it's not a big deal. Let me see. Well, a huge portion of Muslim youth have. Well, again, look, Yusuf, I see what you're saying. I see a trend of it coming, but is it a huge? I mean, is it a lot? I don't know. Maybe it's and don't forget. Here's the thing, Yusuf. Be very careful too, because Twitter has algorithms, right? And so if you click one profile that has a flag on it, it's gonna remember that, and then every time you're gonna see all the similar kind of profiles, right? So it's gonna make it seem like, oh my God, everywhere I go, there's LGBTQ stuff. Oh my God, oh my God. Like I remember when I started clicking some of these David Wood videos, right? Every single video I'm seeing on my side was some anti-Islam video. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? How many Islamophobes are there? And I go on my other laptop and like I don't see any of this content, right? So there's like an algorithm. You have to understand, right? Like there's certain things that I'm not saying there's nobody doing it. I'm not saying it's a minority. I'm sure there's a good significant minority that are doing that and it's becoming problematic. I get that. But is it like this plague? I don't know. I mean, I talk to many different Muslims around the world, and I don't know if I could say it's a plague. But I will say this though: is it an indication of something to come? It could be. If we don't address the problem philosophically and logically from the Islamic lens, it could be a problem that bites us in the rear end later on. Um, 10 years ago, there was no discussion about Islam. I mean, about LGBTQ and transgender and gender dysphoria and these kinds of things. And now it's becoming a conversation piece, right? I mean, just imagine Sheikh Yasser Qadi had brought an anonymous guy onto a session where he's a Muslim, by the way, but he's describing his experiences of being a gay Muslim who has to, who suppresses his desire. This kind of conversation would have never happened 10 years ago. But I applaud that kind of conversation. I think that was probably one of the single best things that Yasser Qadi had done the last couple of years by giving that person a platform so that he can reach out to people and share his struggle and say, you're not alone in that, and that I'm trying to be a Muslim, right? And I think that kind of stuff is a gem to me. It's what's needed right now, right? Let me see. In my point, let me see. My Lucky Click says, bro, I'm telling you, if we would just be man enough to meet up and discuss over coffee, yeah, I mean, that's one thing, Malik. I think that, breaking bread with somebody, there's a wisdom in that you tend to respect them as a human being and you tend to be less harsh with them, right? I've seen that with myself. You tend to respect them on a different level. Maybe that's why I have maybe I don't want to say soft spot, but I respect Daniel. I've met him in person, right? So I know him on a human level. I've met other people in person too that people don't like, and so there's that element. Allah puts mahabba between people, between believers when you meet, and that's one of the benefits of being part of an ummah. So I agree that could serve a benefit and it could help. Harith Sadiq says, in my opinion, association of LGBTQ with American Muslims has to do with certain. Yes, there's certain ideas. Certain ones maybe like Linda Sarsour or maybe Ilhan Omar, but are they really? I mean, and I think people need to wisen up too. Is Linda Sarsour a scholar? Is Ilhan Omar a scholar? They're not, bro. Like these are just politicians and political activists. They are farthest from the scholars, right? Like they're trying to bridge a gap. Scholars are trying to maintain a connection with their community, and these people are part of that community that they're trying to reach out to. And so naturally, you're going to find that they're going to build bridges with them. It doesn't mean by building a bridge that you somehow automatically endorse everything that they say and believe in, right? We have people on our show that say things that we don't agree with. But it doesn't mean, but I'm trying to build a bridge, and it doesn't mean that I wouldn't hope that you guys don't think that I believe everything that every guest says on our show, right? Asadullah says it's like everyone gets mad at Ilhan Umar, but Muslims outside Michigan don't kill. Yeah, I mean, I think Minnesota, right? Yeah, yeah, in Minnesota. Let me see. Sorry, I'm catching up with the comments. Mizan Ahmed, there's escaping Muslim lands claiming that they're LGBTQ coming over to the West. Yeah, I mean, some are, but to be honest, Donald J. Trump, he's not going to allow you to come in the country whether you're gay or not. I mean, he doesn't want you here. If you're a Muslim, at the end of the day, you're a Muslim, right? That's how he's going to look at it. So I don't know how that's going to work out for them. Data shows a quite large portion of LGBT immigrants from Muslim majority countries. Interesting. Yeah, maybe, and you know why? Maybe they're doing that because they feel it's an American ideology. Maybe because they're siding with the left in a way. They're feeling like, hey, I have to display my Americanness, right? I have to say I'm with you. I'm not against you. I'm on your team, kind of thing. Agree. That's why Omar Salman did. You know what? I would love to do that, but I'll be honest. I don't know if we're at that point where I think we've passed that point, right? Where we can have a debate, right, between them. I don't know. Maybe Mahin and Sim can talk about it. I'm not the guy that does that. I'm just the goofy guy that talks and says stupid things. So hopefully, I'd love to see it. I mean, I wish they could hash it out. I would rather a discussion rather than a debate, right? Because a debate means I have to prove you wrong. I have to prove my point. I have to win the audience. I'd rather have a discussion, open, upfront thing about that, right? Um, but let me see here. Um, yeah, they're just liberals getting away from a Muslim. Yeah. My conclusion with DH specifically is that he's dishonest. That's my take and subjective take. Okay, right. I mean, and like I said, and the thing. Everyone's free to have their opinion, and I keep going back to these things. This is anecdotal, right? I mean, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But everybody has a different experience, and all I'm trying to say is that you're welcome to have them. We don't have any issue with that. I think, me personally, I don't have any issue with that. I don't agree with him attacking scholars by using their names and using um, ad hominem attacks about women and their husbands, and so I disagree with that wholeheartedly. If, just like I disagree with anybody posting his wife's picture, right? I think these are no-nos. He shouldn't go after people's husbands and wives, and they shouldn't go after his wife or his personal family experience, right? Um, but I think this conversation was good. I think with all the people in live chat, I think it was good because we were able to kind of understand that, you know what, there's so many different opinions around. What people may think about American Muslims or Western Muslims is not always true, right? What you see in the media, what you hear about what's trending on Twitter isn't always the case, right? I mean, um, I think Asadullah runs a Discord server, and he's probably in touch with young Muslims, and he probably knows more about what actually young minds are concerned about. And from what I can see, a lot of it has to do with refuting arguments that the haters of Islam are presenting to them, and the lack of substance that we have from our side to deal with them. I think that's a bigger problem. Like people like, I don't want to give out names, but people like David Wood, the guy Christian Prince on YouTube, even now some people like Abdullah Samir. I mean, what a joke, right? These people are, but Muslims are not creating content that's an effective response to them, right? And I think that work for me is much more important. I think that is what is going to save Muslims, right? I mean, when you talk about issues that is relatable to them and practical for them, that issues they're being confronted with, right? I think that's the issue. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I would love to see a united force of Muslim brilliant minds that work together and have a think tank that puts out information that counters stuff like the Rand Institute, that counters stuff like Rebel Media, that counters stuff like Robert Spencer and things like that. I think it would be very good. David Wood are causing you to leave Islam more than, of course. And maybe not even leave, but doubting like parts of Islam that are fundamental to us. And just, they may not leave but they may get turned off from Islam and say, you know what, I'm just gonna put everything on hold. I don't understand it. It's complicated. Whatever. I'm just gonna move away from it, right? What isn't yaqeen that? Well, it could be, but is one enough? Fahad, I don't know. Is one group enough? There's not just one anti-Islamic group out there. I mean, right? I mean, they're doing great work. I don't really know everything they do, but alhamdulillah, they're doing good work. But I think we have, much more to do, right? No, I think again, wait, Yusuf, if you don't mind me asking, where do you live? Do you live in the UK or America? I want to call you out, but I'm just curious. Like, do you live in the West, somewhere, or? And I'm asking for a reason, so not to call you out, but I'm asking for, if you don't want to answer. Well, I will say this, okay? There are many Muslims who have attempted to make this hijrah, right, to Egypt and to Saudi Arabia and to the UAE. And if you are accustomed and raised in the West, right, making hijrah, but making hijrah is like this. It's not what you think it's going to be, especially if you haven't lived in the Muslim world. All right, I will say that much. You will be 110% disappointed. All right, I will say that. Wait, FYI, those who want to know, Yaqeen, isn't Rand supported? I don't know about that. I wasn't talking about that. What I meant is that I didn't even know that was. I mean, that was the discussion. I meant that there's a rebuttal to Rand, meaning that a think tank that that creates like Cheryl Bernard, who writes stuff about Muslims, right? And they use like Pew Research, like bias polling, right? Stuff like this, right? That we should have our own type of think tank like the Rand Institute that will advise the government on policies and give accurate opinions about Muslims. I'll give you an example. Now, I know many of you don't believe in, maybe the Salafi persuasion of Islam, but, or necessarily Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, but I'm sure most of you have read his book, Kitab al-Tawheed. Now, anyone who's read Kitab al-Tawheed knows it's really like a pamphlet, okay? And it's just a book about Aqidah, right? There's no mention about jihad or anything like that, right? But the Rand Institute quotes a Pew poll saying that anybody that has a book of a Kitab al-Tawheed or mentions it is considered to be a radical. Now, even if you guys don't agree with Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, would you say that that book in itself is radical? I think most of you would agree that it's not a radical book, really. Maybe it's an Aqidah book, but it's not. But it's not. It's not like a book that would be what they're trying to refer to it as, right? It's not a book that would go out and make you a jihadi, right, or to make you take down the government, or it's not like that. But they're using that as a criteria to call somebody radical, even by just reading the book. Meaning, forget whether you agree or disagree. We're talking about just reading the book. And that's crazy to me. And based on that, Pew Research, Rand goes and writes a think tank article about the different types of Muslims in America, like who's extreme and who's orthodox, right? And these are problematic, right? Anyways, Dar al-Ulum Bury, UK was the first. I'm okay. I didn't know that. I thought the one in Chicago was established like in the 60s or 70s, I think. No, I think later. They had a small institute. You're right. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. I didn't know that was a. Well, Malaysia is nice, but hard to live there unless you have a. Well, I mean, isn't that the problem? I mean, and Asadullah, like, I mean, I've lived around the world in many different places. I've spent time around, and let's be honest, right? At the end of the day, there's no place like home, man. I mean, like you grew up here. There's a familiarity for me. Like, there's my family's here. Like, I mean, I'm familiar. Like, I mean, maybe this is controversial for some, but even when I travel the world, like come back, and even I go to a U.S. embassy abroad, I feel like, oh my God, I mean, like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm home. Like, I mean, just seeing the embassy. Exactly, Fahad. I mean, I've lived there for 3 years in Dubai, and I love the place. It's my second home. But could I just get up and be willing to just leave America for good? Not based on my experience. We've got a long way to go for Muslims to feel that comfortable, for outside Muslims to feel that comfortable in a Muslim country. And by the way, I've spent time in Syria and in Egypt. And, in Egypt, man, I mean, that's a whole different world. Anyone here who's been to Egypt will tell you that, if you think, Patriot Act is something bad in America, I mean, which it is, but you have not experienced being spied on and being watched by the mukhabarat in Arab countries. I'll tell you that much right now. Okay, you are much better off being in America if you are going to be spied on. I'll just say that much. Okay. Mahin, I wish that they would clear that up rather than calling DH a white supremacist. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's conversations that need to happen, but it needs to happen between people that are involved in it, not outside people. That's how I personally feel about it. Right? I believe that I would love to have Omar Suleiman, Yasser Qadi, DH, other people who are involved, Dr. Brown, and, in one room behind closed doors where there's no clout, no media, and just have a breakdown of it, a powwow, right? Like, hash it out. If you guys got to put on boxing gloves and, do an MMA fight, just do it. I mean, like, just hammer it out, whatever, just take it out, that's what I feel, no, I'm not even alive. I'm just saying, what's the objective? What are you hoping to get out of it, right? I mean, I feel like everyone has an objective. Forget about what happened in the past. What's your objective? Can we align on objectives? Can we come to that agreement? That's what I hope envision this happen, right? Because I don't agree with Mahin and everything. I don't agree with Sim and everything. But Mahin and Sim, we've gotten together to do an objective, which is a podcast, right? Right, and that's what I feel like. Okay. Um, yeah, yeah. And by the way, this is another thing too. I know CVE is out there, but be careful. The government likes to infiltrate and likes to put stuff out there for people to believe in and buy in and create so like discord among the ranks. Accusing somebody of being a spy and working with collaborators is a very serious accusation. So I would humbly request that you guys please be absolutely 100% sure if you're going to make an allegation against somebody. If you have the evidence, then at least you can answer to Allah on the day of judgment that you spoke with truth. But if you don't, please be very careful because it is like accusing somebody of ridda, right? It's like accusing somebody of ridda, and it's a big deal. Yeah, very. Yeah, Sheikh Hussein Kamani. Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Yeah, Kamani clothing line. Yeah, he's not too far. I think that's Dar es Salaam, right, Mahin? I think around the area, right? He comes over there. Yeah. Anyways, side topic for other people here. Anyways, I think we've done an hour, guys. This is good. I mean, I didn't expect to go for a whole hour, but I think I think we talked about a lot. Anybody has any closing comments? Anything else before we wrap this one up? No. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, I thank all you guys for joining in. And as always, a pleasure. I'm gonna try to make some more content. I have time, to study and to make not study to make YouTube videos right now with the quarantine. It's about to rain out here, so I'm probably gonna go in. But no, you're welcome, and Jazakallah khair for joining in, Asadullah and Mahin and everyone else and Maliki, all you guys. It's a pleasure to hear feedback and to see what's going because I think these are important conversations. But hit the subscribe button, the like button, hit the alert button, and if you can go ahead and consider donating to the Mad Mamluks, on the Patreon page because the studio needs money and a small amount. It'll help us to keep things going. So that'll be much appreciated. Um, Yalla guys, until next time, we'll talk about it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.